the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. For should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaoh, should Christ have reduced the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools, and our honored dead who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance.
Welcome to another episode of Freedom Radio.
Ja, men Egon, nu får du väl ändå ge dig. Det är 5:e gången, va?
6:e.
De ger sig aldrig. Myndigheterna, de ger sig aldrig. Det är därför de heter myndigheter. Du förlorar ju bara pengar på det.
Det är väl inte pengar det gäller?
Vad gäller det då?
Ja, vad det gäller ju allting. Det gäller ju alltihop.
Vadå alltihopa?
Alltihopa, allting.
If the truckers just sit down, we die.
Now, we look around at the moment, in Sydney alone, in New South Wales, about 5 million people that aren't working. 5 million. You know, they've been forced home to live on government subsidies while this is all happening, and it's in a lot of other states as well. Beyond their control. Now, what's happening is the voice of the people are crying out. You've got all the hospitality workers, the people on lower incomes, the people who are teachers even that are out of work or forced to be at home, the truckers, all the essential workers, they're also being affected now. And because there's no money coming in from that corner of the economy, all of a sudden the government's like, oh, we need money. We need people back to work. Oh,
Yeah, so
we're not getting any
did in Sweden
taxes.
a couple of
Yep.
years ago when the truckers went on strike for better salary or whatever, better conditions. They had this threat that is it sounds so pathetic, but it worked. They said, if you don't give us what we want, we will keep the speed limits. Yeah. And that's like, it's horrible when the society is dependent on the truckers breaking the speed limits. Something is wrong. And the thing is that
I don't know the right word other than just it doesn't take a whole lot to influence things, and you don't have to get to revolutions and all these other crazy things that happen to be able to make change. So at least in that story, you know, over here or in Australia, we would literally just block the road, and you know because if you don't have truckers in any nation, especially in the Western nations, you don't have truckers, you don't have an economy. You just don't.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing. Do not represent the views of Canadians who have been there for each other, who know that following the science is the best way to continue to ensure our freedoms, our rights, our values as a country.
Really criticizing science, because I represent science. In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you're under arrest, Chancellor.
Are you threatening me, Master Jedi?
The Senate will decide your fate.
I am the Senate.
Not yet.
I want to throw a shout out to the truckers in this Freedom Convoy 2022. My goodness, you guys have no idea how much what you're doing means to me and my family. You see, my husband, he got myocarditis after his first dose. And the doctors have refused an exemption for the second one, which means he had to hang up his hat as lieutenant at our local fire hall. He can't participate in certain parts of society. You know, that's not the worst part. The worst part is his heart is injured. And the vaccine injured people are being ignored. They're being called crazy. They're being called coincidences. And enough is enough. Enough is enough. So thank you from the bottom, the very, very bottom of our hearts. I appreciate every single one of you. And for the first time in a long time, I actually have hope.
Who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing.
To try to get this country back, you know, it's not just for the truckers, but we support them, but it's for the entire country. It's actually for the entire world. Like, just, you know, if you want to make some decisions and do things on your own, then that's fine. But if people don't want to, then we should have the choice to choose. And yeah, freedom.
Who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing.
The trucker convoy winding its way through Canada has clearly become something much bigger than what it began as. It has become a symbol for people to voice their frustrations with overbearing COVID restrictions that see Canada remain one of the most restricted countries in the free world.
Could you let me out of here, mister? I'll do anything you want.
You poor guy. You look like caca.
Now should be the time where we stop adding new layers. Instead, we peel back the layers. Most people have their vaccines. The Omicron variant have thankfully proven milder than previous variants. A lot of good news out there to celebrate, but instead Canadian officials, they don't want to acknowledge this stuff.
It isn't the man with the little clipboard and the armed escort.
No, we don't shake hands here, just precaution.
A precaution. Uh-huh.
Beijing acknowledges now that they don't think it originated in that market.
Well, it may not have originated in the market, but it certainly could have. I think you could say we don't know how and where it originated.
He can't quit the wet market theory. So why should we trust them now? Almost nothing that man does works to slow down the spread of a virus. The vaccine works, and natural immunity. Everything else we've done could have possibly delayed it a little bit, but really probably has done little, if nothing, to changing the trajectory of things. Every time we've instituted a mandate, whether it be masked or social distancing or how many people can be at a restaurant or how late you can get a drink at a bar, none of this affected the trajectory of the virus. The virus has moved, the numbers of viral infections per day have moved regardless of what man has tried to do. Other than the vaccine, and the vaccine was working pretty well in May of April, but now the vaccine isn't working so well and the virus is escaping it. So the one thing they could do, they're not doing, and that is we should allow for a new vaccine to be introduced. They have it waiting, but they're not doing anything to introduce the new vaccine. Why would they not introduce a new vaccine? You know, that's a good question. I think, well, maybe they bought a lot of the old one. They haven't used it up yet, and maybe they're trying to be frugal. Maybe somebody has something invested in the old one, but the old one isn't working so well. It probably does reduce your risk of severe hospitalization still and death, but it's not really fighting off the virus at a level where we really could change the trajectory.
They're really criticizing science because I represent science.
He represents science. I have a feeling he might be talking about you, Senator. You know, when a government bureaucrat has the audacity, the arrogance to say they represent all of science, we should be running the other way. It conjures up images of the medieval church, you know, in their repression of science. Science has nothing to do with having obedience to any kind of government dogma. And you have to realize that most of what Fauci talks about isn't science. He's not talking about a study on this or a study of that. He's talking about wear a mask. Well, when you talk about the peer-reviewed studies of masks, there was one done in Denmark, showed that it didn't work. When you look at all of Sweden, 1.8 million children have not been wearing masks for the last 2 years. They've had 0 COVID deaths. And you say, well, have the teachers been infected? Well, it turns out the teachers are infected at the same rate as the rest of the public. So they've had no masks for a year and a half, and it has worked, and that's a whole country. And
in Canada, this is happening. Thousands of truckers are angry because the government is demanding that they're fully vaccinated against the Rona. Rolling across the nation is their so-called Freedom Convoy, which sounds more American than Canadian for my liking, but there it is. What could possibly have made them this angry? Well, maybe this guy?
Canada's showing that we are doing things.
Yep, so Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who spent his early fun years having a great time like any super privileged rich white man, often dressed as a brown man, has spent his political years going woke for votes. And during this little crisis, this Liberal champion has accidentally made it be known what he really thinks about these truckers and their supporters. Have a listen.
Small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views.
Unacceptable views, which is an interesting phrasing from Mr. Liberal, isn't it? Could it be that just perhaps some might feel a certain anger over the idea that he appears to be dismissing some small fringe minorities whilst cherry-picking the ones he does want to get behind?
I will never apologize for standing up for an LGBTQ2+.
I would personally take the Voltaire approach on this one. The views of some of the truckers might be a bit silly, but they still have a right to hold them, and they still have a right to protest, and they still have a right not to be insulted by their leader. In fact, dismissing them reminds me a little bit of this.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
And you know where that got us. So, politicians, even if you think the views of some people are deplorable or unacceptable, maybe try and keep that inside, because some of them have huge...
This is a rally for truckers, but it's also a rally for the 60% of Canadians who say they worry they can't afford food. It's for the 60-year-old small businessman who spent his entire adult life building up an enterprise and watching it wiped out. It's for the depressed 14-year-old who's been locked out of school. It's for the families that can't take it anymore. It's for the people who want to stand up and speak for their freedoms. It's for all those that our government and our media have insulted and left behind. It's for the people who work hard to put food on our table, to stock our shelves, and to make this country work. It's for all that is great, that attracts hundreds of thousands of people from around the world to come here. They come here not for the warm weather, but for our freedom. And that's why we are gathered here today. Freedom, not fear. Truckers, not Trudeau.
He'll hang his head.
We are here in solidarity with every Canadian. Right. This is not about mandates. This is not about saving lives. This is about control. They are destroying lives. You see, we are teachers. We are truckers. We are nurses. We are Canadians.
Show this video. Look at this video that I sent Jamie.
Huge. Look at they go forever. This is by Atchison outside of Edmonton, heading to Calgary. January 23rd.
It's a giant convoy of trucks that's apparently some insane amount of people, like 50,000 trucks that are headed to Ottawa.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing. do not represent the views of Canadians.
Right. It's our moral duty to do something and to stand up. Silence is compliance.
Freedom is a beautiful thing, paid for with blood. They gave so much for the land they love.
Oh, this just gets better and better and better. Yesterday, after the Prime Minister made those very condescending remarks,
the small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views.
Unacceptable. Oh my God. All across social media, Canadians are adding the word unacceptable to their usernames. It is glorious. From now on, you can just call me Unacceptable Just Incredible. That's fine. Actually, I wear that badge with pride.
I never thought that I would say this, but we need to take a cue from what is happening in Canada right now.
Australia is taking a cue from us now, and they're going to be doing the same thing. They're going to have a convoy to their capital. Oh, and Sweden now too. And yesterday, Brazilian truckers took to the roads in solidarity with the Canadian truckers. It is international. It is glorious. Even Elon Musk tweeted out, "Canadian truckers rule." He's right. They do.
Small fringe minority.
Day 6 of the slow roll across Canada. Here's what the media won't show you.
In the annals of human history, a time comes but rarely when a nation awakes to freedom, to liberty, to truth, and to a new beginning. This is such a time. You, the truckers of Canada, have brought hope back to a nation languishing in the long night of tyranny and oppression. You've made our grandmothers and our children smile and dance again. You, the truckers of Canada, have made the songs of freedom soar and sound anew, from mountain top to shining sea, from PEI to BC, and from our great white north to our teeming borders south. Your roar of freedom has reverberated across our towns and our cities and has been heard around the world. Canada is cheering you on. Our American brothers and sisters are cheering you on. And we know that from every continent, from every global outpost of tyranny, a shout of acclamation and a hand of solidarity is being raised for you and for us in Canada and for all of humanity.
Thank you, truck drivers. I really want to go back to school and do sports. Thank you for all that you're doing.
I'd like to give a big thank you to everyone participating in the convoy, truckers and all the supporters. I'm going to try and do this without crying.
Hey, go kids. Anything you want to say? Thank you, truckers. Thank you, truckers. Love you. I love you.
I just want to say, way to go, everybody, Canadians. Feel like all you proud to be Canadian, never more than before with this movement here. I just want to say the world's watching, Canada's watching. My daughter wants you to say hi.
Hi.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to when you get to Vankley Kill. There's going to be quite the crew to follow behind you.
We support you.
This has been the first time in 2 years that I've had hope. And I feel actually proud to be a Canadian again. May God keep our land glorious and free. Let freedom reign.
Drive safe. Stay good tonight.
God bless you and Godspeed.
The convoys are just arriving. The video I put up in the middle of the night last night, that was just the local truckers nearby in Ottawa. The main convoys haven't even arrived yet. They're just starting to stream in now. The fringe minority has descended on Ottawa, which is now the largest truck stop in the world. Oh, wait a minute. Fringe minority? CTV did a national poll a couple days ago asking if Canadians supported this convoy. Oh look, 77% of us support it. So let's just stop saying fringe minority. From now on, we are the fringe majority. Today, we are all Canadian. And for the first time in 2 years, we really are all in this together. Meanwhile, Trudeau's been moved off to some bunker somewhere, probably.
Hey, it's Andrew Lawton with True North. We are on Parliament Hill in downtown Ottawa in front of Centre Block for the Truckers for Freedom convoy. It hasn't even started yet, and this place is packed. We've got trucks lining Wellington Street. We'll show those in just a moment. We've got people from all over the country here, and the message is a very simple one. It's not about violence. It's not about extremism. Well, I mean, if you watch the CBC or listen to Justin Trudeau, it is. No, it's about freedom. It's a very simple message. It's a very unifying message, and it's one that the people here are making.
You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. Amen. For should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaoh? Could Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools, and our honored dead gave their lives.